Okay, so here goes. Day 2 review of Leaders in Truth. Now, if I look like I haven't shaved and I've basically been on a 3-day men's retreat out in this incredible place, Planet Zankara. So what happened on day 2? Well, the first thing I forgot to tell you was on day 1, I actually saw a black spitting cobra, Cape spitting cobra. Now, it's a venomous snake. It can kill you. It's one of the top 6 most deadly snakes, and it was huge. It was like 2 meters long, and it literally put its head up and looked straight at me, and I'm absolutely terrified of snakes, and I just ran away. And it's quite a good symbol for facing your fears, because I didn't make any ceremony about it, but it was out by the toilet, and I gave it a bit of time, let my heart calm down, and eventually at a later stage I went back there. And I'm going to talk a little bit in day 3 about fear, but it was a really visceral experience for me of the universe literally giving me this bloody snake that I was absolutely terrified of. So we started the day 2 with breathing. We finished with the breathing exercise the night before. I had some very hectic dreams that brought up quite a lot of anger in me. We did this breathing exercise, a different type of breathing exercise. They're called Savana and Andamandla. I'm not going to try and both Indian names. And for me, it was really interesting. It was like an hour and a half long. And in the beginning, it brought up a lot of anger again, a lot of agitation, and then just real peace and tranquility, which was absolutely awesome. In terms of they speak so much about the breathing. Then we went into the 7 chakras and learned all about the 7 chakras. Now, again, I'm not going to go into all the detail, but one of the things I'm fascinated by is Roger Hamilton, who sort of has this balance between East and West. He's built the wealth dynamics and the wealth spectrum, and it's clear even the colors are all built on the chakras. So it's really, really interesting. And I mean, we literally climbed that hill over there. I don't know if you can see it. That very tall one there. We climbed it this morning before breakfast to watch the sun go up. And what's really interesting is even the bushes are in the chakras. It's really hard to explain, but this lady took us all through it in terms of the process. The next thing that I thought was really powerful was sharing in a group. So it's that whole thing in a mastermind that you'll be 5 times more successful when you work in a group. And that's exactly what happens. You get the connection, you get the learnings from other people, you get each other challenging each other and the growth. And it's really, really a powerful experience in terms of that process. We then did an exercise called the infinity writing. We had 30 minutes and you just write for 30 minutes. And it was really interesting because it was all about our inner work, all about our inner child and our connection with self, and again, trying to discover our inner truth. And that was really, really interesting. And it's amazing, 30 minutes sounds like a long time, but actually it goes by like that, and all of us were like, oh wow, we wish we had more time in terms of the process. And then what was interesting is that we worked on our negative beliefs, and we put them into we wrote them on a piece of paper, and we went out into the bush out there in Africa. And we basically put the negative beliefs against a rock, and we had this thing called scream and release. And we then took this arrow and we stuck it in our throats and against the rock. And we had to basically trust the process and push towards it and scream and release and release that those negative beliefs out of your system, which was really, really interesting in terms of the whole process. So that was all part of the inner game. And then we moved to the outer game, which was all about goals and goal setting. And most people have heard of SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, results-based, time-based. We went through a whole exercise, and it's amazing how many people don't even have goals. It's phenomenal, actually. And they go through the whole exercise, and they do the SMART goals, and I've been doing goals for a long time. So, but even I was I learned quite a lot there around making sure that we make sure we get it, and we make it present, and we make it, and it's about the feeling, it's about the person that you have to be to ultimately achieve the goals. And I found that really, really interesting. We then went into mind power and how the outer game is a reflection of our inner world. So if you're out there and you've got people in your life or you've got circumstances in your life that you don't like, it's ultimately a reflection of what's happening on the inside. And that was really powerful because it kind of gave me the thing between victim and victor. Now, a victim is someone who's at the mercy and the circumstances of the universe, whereas a victor is someone that's in power of their life and ultimately takes responsibility both for the good and the bad that's in their life. And it's a very empowering belief in terms of that process. And what was really interesting is that when I was in India, most people want to have something, and so they think they'll have it, and then once they have it, they'll be it. So as an example, they'll be happy when they have money, but actually you have to have. You have to be the person then you do the action, and ultimately you'll have the result. And it's really interesting, fascinating concept, because it's exactly what the SMART goals was about. And I've been doing goals now since I was 20, so 26 years. And I realized the part I've been missing is the be part. Like, I actually have to be the person. So as an example, I want to have a magnificent relationship, and I realized I need to have a magnificent relationship with myself, and I need to, project self-love and self-worth and all of that. And ultimately it starts from source first. Like, again, it's back to truth, like your inner. And the more you create the inner, the more you'll ultimately get the results on the outer side. What was really, really interesting is that we then went and took this rebar. And I've never done this before, but this piece of rebar here, okay, so it's if you want to look at it, it's 10 millimeters thick, and two people literally put them in our throats and stood like apart from each other. We had to trust each other and work as a team, and we literally walked like with this rebar in our throats. We had to trust each other and walk towards each other. And there were a lot of really interesting lessons that came up there, because for me, firstly, you've got all of these beliefs that you're getting rid of, and particularly the outer game, and then one of the things that he said, which I loved, and I'm gonna read it to you here around goal setting, is that he basically said obstacles are the things we see when we take our eye off the goal. Obstacles are the things we see when we take our eye off the goal, which I just absolutely loved. And if you go back to the rebar exercise, that's exactly what we were doing. It was like focusing on each other. We had to trust each other. We had to have intent. We had to have communication, and then we had to go for it. And it created this incredible bond. I had a guy, and what was fascinating as well in the universe was just bizarre. Like, I wanted self-love, and so did he want self-love. And it was just bizarre. Like, we didn't even pick each other. Like, the universe picked us. And like, we did this thing, and it was like such a bonding moment. And then ironically, one of the other groups, like, they were both around finances. It was just bizarre, like how the universe put it all together in terms of that process. For me, just looking here quickly at my notes. So then the last thing was, ultimately, like, we went through all these exercises, and it was just so incredible watching these men break through their fears as well. Like, I'd never done that rebar thing, so that was quite scary for me to do something for the first time. But I think the last thing that was really important, which was anchoring. And believe it or not, we wrote down what we want in our life, and also what we don't want. And so, like, for me, I wanted to release fear and sadness. Fear for me is anxiety and overwhelm. Sadness is anger, frustration, etc. And I wanted to gain faith. And for me, faith is courage and creativity and connection, ultimately connection to self. I love what someone said to me, connection to source as well. And then I want more joy. And that's about self-love and self-worth and peace and serenity. And ultimately just, loving yourself. And so anyway, so that was my intention I put out there, and to anchor it, which was ultimately I learned this anchoring move when I was with Tony Robbins, and I can't do it here because it's below the camera, but ultimately we walked on fire. So we went out and into this magical bush, we made a big bonfire, and we put our logs in there, plus our intentions and everything down, and you had to set a very specific intent as to what you wanted to get out of the experience and what you wanted to get from the fire and what your reason was for walking the fire. And they call it anchoring because if you can walk across fire, you can do anything else you want in your life. And there's a specific move that it's called a power move that I learned years ago through Tony Robbins. I've done many, many fire walks, and it was just so awesome watching all these other guys do it. They'd never done it before, and the facilitator Kerry was wonderful. But I walked 4 times, and I walked to say goodbye to fear. I walked to say goodbye to sadness. I walked to invite faith into my life, and I walked to invite joy into my life. And for me, we finished off the evening with a huge celebration. Everyone was, overwhelmed with emotion. So many breakthroughs through the whole day. We had a magnificent dinner, and then actually we had a couple of drinks and just celebrated. And I got to, really, really get to know the guys like at a human level. And it's just so amazing when you put souls together that want to have such a big impact on the planet, and how they can resonate off each other, and how they can learn from each other, challenge each other, grow, and ultimately find each other's truth. So that for me was really, really empowering. So that's it. That's day 2 summed up for you.